Like, I swear to God, in like progression, every single thing is like they're rolling d20s somehow.
Sure.
Like,
Everything just seems to go well, yeah.
yeah, like they'll just be like walking along and they'll like stumble into a new martial arts technique that'll take them to the next level. But I kind of wanted to avoid that, and I wanted to kind of like take a realistic approach, and I also wanted characters that I liked. Felt like I wasn't seeing the stories I wanted to see in these kind of stories, so that's where I went with my own writing journey. Well, I'm Lazarus James. I'm Australian. I've been writing for like ever, but Dungeon Hunter, which is the thing I have on sale with the LitRPG thing, is the first thing that I've ever actually like posted and published. Yeah, and so it's kind of like near and dear to my heart.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So you say you've been writing for forever. Can you talk about sort of your writing journey then?
Yeah, so I've been writing like it's embarrassing, but the first thing I ever wrote was fan fiction. I think everyone kind of maybe starts there. But from there, I was just always writing fantasy. And it's only kind of I guess it's just popular when it became popular, LitRPG. I only started wanting to write it when I started becoming more aware of it, reading manhwa and like System Apocalypse kind of stories. And yeah, I felt like I wasn't seeing the stories I wanted to see in these kind of stories, so that's where I went with my own writing journey.
That's awesome. And then, so just touching on two things there. So one, can you talk about sort of, are you comfortable talking about the fanfics? Was it a specific story? Did you have like a specific type of thing that you wrote? If it's like some like weird spicy thing, you don't have to talk about it, but like, do you have like a specific fandom that you like quite a bit?
No, so when I was the very, very first fanfic I remember writing was probably for a Dragon Lancer series. It was like I think it was called like a revival of him. It was for a much younger audience. I think I was probably around 12, and I think the only thing I really did was I gender flipped characters. And I kind of just got the first chapter and rewrote it in a way I liked it, and that was probably my journey through like writing the first time. Beyond that, I've probably been like through the gauntlet of other fanfic like Harry Potter and Naruto. But yeah, and then it kind of died down for a while, and I started writing like more original stuff, but none of that has seen the light of day except on my PC.
Sure.
Yeah.
And then, so when you decided to sort of like put out this particular book, like what about it sort of put it above the other original stories that you wrote that made you want to sort of be like, hey, like this I want to put in front of people. I feel like the most confident about this. Like, what about it was sort of the thing that sort of was the crux that pushed you forward?
I think I just thought it was a really good idea.
That's great. Yeah.
I mean, you probably aren't meant to say that about your own stuff, but I just thought that I hadn't seen this story before, and I really liked the characters I was writing, and I thought that the plot I had written was really quite engaging, and so I decided that why not put it out there? Who else am I writing this for? I'm writing it for me, but I'm sure someone else out there will like it.
Sure. And can you speak to sort of the story? So I haven't, in full transparency, I haven't read your stories yet, but can you speak to sort of the story a little bit more? So like, what is it about generally? Yeah.
Yeah. So, you say System Apocalypse and most people will understand what that's going to be about. I think you can have a general foundation of what that is. So it's System Apocalypse, and it's the start of the system being activated, and it follows Lee and Axel, who are ex-best friends, as they kind of like trundle about figuring out their way through the System Apocalypse. And it's first person in perspective of Lee, and it is a very, I will say it's slow progress and character based, so it's probably not for people who are after a power fantasy or after like action after action. It's more about the foundation of character relationships and the way people kind of would react in that situation. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it's really like, I've asked people what genre they would probably put it under if they were ignoring like the System Apocalypse part, and it's kind of more hurt comfort contemporary drama than it is like action and everything, but there is those elements in it as well because it's system apocalypse, obviously.
Sure. That's awesome. And so you said that you had been reading other types of stories prior to this, and then you heard about LitRPG. So had you read some LitRPG? I don't want to, like, again, this isn't meant to quiz you at all, but had you read a couple that sort of gave you the sense of like, hey, this is the type of story that I do want to write?
Not Western lit RPG.
Sure.
So a lot of like Dungeon Hunter, Korean manhwa, so the classics, ORV, SSS Class, Suicide Hunter, Dungeon Reset, like a lot of those kind of influenced me, and I was like, oh man, I really wish this story existed, and it didn't exist. So
Sure.
yeah.
That's really cool. So what type of, are you like a manga reader? Is it mainly manhwa that you read? Is it mainly like, do you go to like the light novels and stuff? So maybe talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so I am primarily I used to be mostly manga, but then sort of like manhwa burst onto the screen, and then it had like so much content, and none of that content's basically finished. So you're still reading it to this day, and maybe that's also why it's kind of dissatisfying. But so I follow mostly manhwa. I do read some light novels, but like sparingly, because I find that the quality. I think you can forgive some story beats and plots and holes when you are reading manhwa, because you're like, that'll be covered later, or like it's like a little detail in the background. But when you get into like the actual like word for word hits, and you're reading light novels that may not have been translated really well, you miss some things, and it's just not as good, I think. So mostly in manhwa and manga.
Yeah. And you mentioned ORV, so are you pretty excited about the live action? And I think there's also going to be like an anime of it as well. So I know that series is doing very, 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 very well right now. So
there was the live action film, and I saw like a shot of it, and I'm like, that's terrible.
Oh.
I don't think I'll ever watch that. It doesn't seem true to the soul of the story at all. So I'll probably avoid that. The anime, however, I think I've seen shots of, or at least like art of, and it looks promising. So fingers crossed on that. I'm not completely up to date on the manhwa, but I've been spoiled absolutely and entirely for the story. So I'm like sitting here, I'm gonna be like, I don't want to read the ending. I know it, and it's gonna be awful. It's gonna be heartbreaking, but I'm still gonna read it, obviously.
Sure. Good on you for actually. So like, I did read towards the beginning of it, and again, it's one of those many things that I definitely should finish. But the fact that you actually did finish it is fantastic. So like, that's great.
It's an ending that sticks with you, I'll say.
Okay, fair.
Yeah.
How do you consume your media generally? Is it are you using Webtoon app? Are you pirating everything? Like how do you generally consume your media?
Well, generally, of the books, no. Generally I use like a manga congregator. But the most, I would say, just version of that, which actually did recently get hit by a lot of DMCA strikes. But usually what happens on those kind of websites is that as soon as it's licensed, it's taken down. So that's my defense.
Honestly, I feel as though, especially for people, so you're in Australia, so I don't know if it's the exact same, but for me in Canada, a lot of those stories weren't available when we were younger, right? So the only way you were able to actually see those stories was through those sites that sort of were not official, but at the end of the day, there was no official source of them. And of course, right now you have more options. You have your Crunchyroll, you have your Yen Press, you have your Webtoon that is sort of taking up the mantle, and Shonen Jump has their own now as well. And those are pretty reasonable. And like, I was telling my wife a few months ago that like, I'm very happy for my kids right now that they can use things like Shonen Jump, because at the very least, like even now as I go to those other sites, if I click on anything wrong, I'm taken to a porn site, or I'm taken to a gambling site. So the fact that you have these official sources of these things is really good for kids nowadays, where we didn't have those back in the day. And I'm only like 30-ish, so like at the end of the day, it's a very new thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Yeah.
Are there any sort of like stories that like are there intended to be more stories within the book that you just wrote? Is it a series? Are you intending to write more stories in general? Like sort of what's your plan moving forward?
Yeah, so Dungeon Hunter is Act 1 out of, it was originally meant to be a trilogy, but I currently post to Royal Road as well.
Okay.
So Act 2 is being posted and it's nearly finished. And it's meant to be a trilogy, but Act 2 got a lot longer than I thought it was going to be, so it's probably going to be a quadrilogy instead. But yeah, that's where it's going and that's where it's heading. And I don't want to be one of those authors who doesn't finish their stories.
Sure.
I've always hated that. So that is, it will get an ending.
That's great. That's fantastic. And how are you finding the process of being on like Royal Road and stuff? Do you find it's good to get that feedback, or are you getting feedback? Like how does that process sort of like fare for you?
So specifically for my less off meta story, because there's a whole meta on Royal Road, where you basically are writing lit RPG for a specific demographic that is the whole of Royal Road. And my story is completely off meta for that. So it's not really found a huge audience base. But the people who do comment and they write really nice things, and I found it generally is like you don't expect engagement. You're kind of just throwing your story out there, and if someone comments, hey, yeah, that's really nice, but there is very little feedback, I would say, unless you have like dedicated readers. And I know a lot of people who are a lot more successful and write like really popular stories. They have a lot of dedicated readers who like are reading the up-to-date chapters, but alas, I am not a famous writer. Yeah.
No, honestly, that's fine. The one thing I'd say, and this is my only like, I'm not here to give like tips or whatever, quote unquote. Add more tags to your stuff. So honestly, I feel as though as I was looking at it, it's hard to tell like what type of story. But here you mentioned System Apocalypse, and I think the name makes it seem as though it's intended to be like a dungeon core story or like a dungeon-esque story. And if it's a System Apocalypse or an apocalypse story or lit RPG in any way, like add those tags so people can sort of find them a little bit easier. Just for like both Royal Road and also for Amazon. But again, apologies for tips. Apologies especially for unsolicited tips. Yeah.
No, 100%. I will consider it. I guess it is System Apocalypse, but there are dungeons. Sure. It's the inspiration behind the title is that I was gonna say bad, but I wanted to pick the most generic sounding title to exist. I didn't even know about Dungeon Crawler Carl when I started writing, and I titled it this. Yeah. So I was picking the most generic as a. It's gonna sound obnoxious, but like a meta commentary on the genre as a whole. Like these characters are hunting in dungeons. Like that's what they do. Yeah. But I understand the idea and your advice. It's probably good advice, to be honest.
Honest. Take everything with a grain of salt. So just on your commentary on the meta of things. So do you find as though what do you believe the meta to be? And then sort of what is your story sort of like trying to fill that you feel as though is sort of like I can't think of the word right now, different than that particular meta. So what is the meta of your story maybe compared to the other metas?
So I do believe like the meta is more about like following not to be disparaging, but like a 20-something young man who is down on his luck, and then sort of like a system apocalypse happens, or like the system is triggered. Like that's typically where I believe the story starts for a lot of characters and a lot of stories. And I think that's like it's the bread and butter of the lit RPG kind of world. And that's where a lot of them start. And I felt like an attraction to that base meta. And usually from there, they start powering up, they start leveling up, and they start doing like, it depends on like what category you want to like go into past that point. But but beyond that, I feel like you start there's no end in sight, I think, for a lot of the stories. And I know that's part of the web serial world. Like, you want to continue your story, to continue having people read. And like, it's a combination of trying to keep your audience and continue creating. And I kind of didn't want to do that. I wanted to very much have a start and an end, and have characters that I personally like. I find that a lot of the time you get like, not like overly cocky main characters, but you get characters who are really overly sure of themselves, and they get like really lucky. And I noticed, especially in like, I have read like some progression manhwa. It's not my preferred reading, but like, I swear to God, in like progression, every single thing is like they're rolling d20s somehow. Like,
Sure. Everything just seems to go well, yeah.
Yeah, like they'll just be like walking along and they'll like stumble into a new martial arts technique that'll take them to the next level. But I kind of wanted to avoid that, and I wanted to kind of like take a realistic approach, and I also wanted characters that I liked, and I thought hadn't really been done before, at least in what I'd read in manhwa. So maybe there is LitRPG out there that's in Western audiences that has been done, but what I had read hadn't been.
There definitely is, but I do think there is something to be said about the idea that like, so I'm going to talk on two ends. I think there's the perception of LitRPG definitely is that a lot of the times, right? Like, a lot of the very popular stories did start that way, definitely, and I think a lot of that did resonate with like certain groups of people, and as a result, it's sort of, they got ultra popular, and it sort of created this specific type of taste for other people trying to write in the genre as well. So I do agree with you. I think a lot of the times there's this, they call them a loner main character or a male main character who ends up being ultra powerful and becomes a power fantasy. And I think that definitely is a thing. There definitely is a lot of stories that do deviate from that. So I hope that if we do get some engagement on this particular video, you'll be able to see that, well, not that you'll be able to see, but people will give recommendations for others who also have that perception and can get like other types of stories that aren't, right? Like, there's a lot of stories right now that are like non-male main characters, and honestly, most of the stories that I look at nowadays are like female main characters, and or non-human main characters, or non-system apocalypse and stuff. Like, there's a lot of breadth to that, and I've written that as well. So honestly, it's not for you, but like for others listening to this, there's definitely a lot more to the genre than just that particular thing, even though that is very popular. And then on the other aspect, the idea of like series that are non-ending, that definitely is an issue with certain like very popular stories. You think of the most popular with He Who Fights with Monsters, and you think of Primal Hunter and Defiance of the Fall, where people feel as though it's just going to keep going on and on and on, and that seems to be the way that those authors want it to be. But even the most popular Dungeon Crawler Carl, there's like a specific endpoint in mind with that, where like each story is sort of like self-contained on a different floor, and it's like moving forward. But again, I'm rambling at this point, and I don't want to focus more on you. So we've talked about the manhwa side of things. So do you want to sort of give us some examples of stories that you think people should check out then?
Yeah. So one of these is probably not going to resonate with anyone. But it's called Chitra, and it's kind of more similar to an otome isekai. And it still kind of uses a system, but it's closer to transmigration than anything else. So if you're familiar with any of the words I'm throwing
no,
out,
I know them all.
Good,
if
fantastic.
you can, so because these will be a bit more obscure, if you can send me like these afterwards, so I can add a little like image of them so people can find them afterwards. Yeah, because I don't know if I'll be able to find Chitra, so that'd be great if you can send it afterwards. But please go on. Yeah. So you liked Chitra. That's great.
So it's a, how to explain this with while selling it. It's kind of like a why pick, why choose, which reverse harem kind of thing. And she becomes the how do I explain it? The chosen soldier of this world's god of beauty, who is not being worshipped at all in the world. And he's personified as a huge bunny. And like a lot of the mechanics in the system are gotcha. So she has to do like super praying to like get the luck, to get really good rolls. And it just has some of the best comedy I've seen in like beat for beat comedies I've seen in a while. And the story is really engaging. The characters, her logic and reasoning are like second to none. I think that's the thing I really enjoy about her character. She doesn't have like every single choice she makes is logical, and I find that really hard to find in a lot of other stories. Like sometimes you sit there and you're like, come on, really, you've done this? But everything she does is reasonable and well thought out, and she eventually gets like different advisors from like the gotcha pools, and they also make sense and have interesting backgrounds, and it's like a really engaging story. And it also looks at the like morality of, she's just like kind of a little human who got put in the situation, and now she's like becoming a commander of armies, and she has to deal with the fact that next she has to like kill people, like she has to order people to be killed. So it's a really interesting story. A lot of different genres mixing and combining. So I would, if it sounds good to anyone, Chichiro. And these other two are probably more universally accepted. The S classes that I've raised is a manhwa I really, really like. It's probably not a hidden gem, but I actually there's very little I can fault about it as a story. I enjoy reading. I really like the main character. I love his relationship with his brother. I think it's really beautiful. The art itself is fantastically done. The story it tells is fun, and really a different take kind of on the system apocalypse and the idea of the main character. I guess spoilers if you're ever going to read it, but like going back in time, like it's a different way of looking at it. And I really liked the S classes that I raised.
I've heard of that one, and it's a story type, because there's actually a few of them now, and there's a few actually on LitRPG that started there and have sort of gotten very popular as well. It's a story type that I also want to write eventually. I have a few other things I need to write first, but I like that sort of idea of someone raising the people who end up being the strongest rather than they themselves being the strongest. I think that's a cool concept. Sorry, you're third.
No, that's 100% it. Like it's inspired. So with Dungeon Hunter as well, like my main character is trying to like wrestle with these other characters who are probably a lot better than him. Sure. And that's what I'm inspired by as well a little bit. And this last one is one I didn't finish, and I wasn't really sold on beginning, but it has really fun humor. And it's the constellation that returned from hell. And it's kind of like the system apocalypse activates, and like the constellations are brought in, and this dude just gets like jettisoned into like the nethers. Like he just gets shot out into space, and he spends like millions of years out there just like trying to figure shit out, like, and like trying to get back to Earth. And in the process, he becomes a constellation himself. But he's not fully aware of it, because he's kind of like generously slow. Like so he doesn't really know and what he's truly capable of. And eventually he figures out a way back to Earth, and that's kind of like the starting point of it. And it has like really fantastic humor. I think the art is kind of like subpar looking back at it now. But like I think the humor is great. The story does peter off a little bit, because it gets to like, I hesitate to call them it, but like filler arcs and stuff like that. Yeah. And I dropped off after a while, but I say the start is really, really enjoyable.
Yeah, no, that's great. I think those are great, and like I said, send them to me afterwards so I can put up the covers. And like I think those are really great recommendations. And honestly, I had someone the other day. I spoke to someone yesterday who writes superhero stuff, and they recommended that. And I had someone last week who wrote. Oh darn! They wrote different types of stories that were not LitRPG. So I have no issue at all recommending other stories. Because at the end of the day, like we're all going to gain inspiration. Enjoyment from other different types of entertainment as well. So it doesn't hurt that it doesn't ultimately need to be a LitRPG and progression fantasy. So as you look forward, so you're going to finish off your series. It's intended to be a trilogy, but maybe 4. Do you have other ideas in mind as well? Do you have other things that you want to sort of write as well, but you sort of like have to sort of push them away and be like, no, I'm focusing on Dungeon Hunter right now. Leave me alone. Like, or do you have things that sort of like bother you constantly, and how do you manage that?
So I started to do the write-a-thon for Royal Road because I kind of wanted to get away from Dungeon Hunter for a little bit. I was still writing it, obviously, because you can't stop when you're putting stuff on the Royal Road.
Yeah.
But I tried to do the write-a-thon. I didn't actually sign up for it because like I probably won't reach the actual word count. I got up to 50,000 words on a completely different story. But the Royal Road is like 55,555. So I was like, close enough for me. But that was a completely different genre, and I would like to return to it again. I originally intended to write it as I was really inspired by like Orville and Star Trek and stuff like that. I wanted to do kind of like a Monster of the Week, exploring the galaxy and expanding our knowledge kind of story. It completely, like, as I was writing it, it completely utterly torpedoed into something else. It became like an alien survival story.
Sure.
And that's a lot of fun. I do want to return to that because it like combines a lot of ideas that I can't really use in Dungeon Hunter because it's not grounded in reality, but it's a lot closer to contemporary fiction than something like super sci-fi is. So I'm intending on returning to that. It was called tentatively, let me see if I can find it. Ambition in Progress, because the name of the ship they're on is called Ambition.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it's a fun story. It's debatable now I'm thinking about it. It's probably like a depressing story, but but I do hope to finish that. I think it'll be like a short fiction piece, I would hope. And the way I deal with, like, you know, I guess like plot bunnies for other stories is I write the start of it and then I'm like, it's good enough. We'll come back to that eventually.
Yeah, no, honestly, I do something very similar where you write one chapter or you write down the idea. For me, I had another story come up and I was just like, okay, I'm going to create a folder for it on my desktop so I know it's there. The idea is sort of like parked away for later, but I know I can't think about it. So like it's gone for now. I couldn't even tell you what it's about right now. It's just I've written it down. I've written down some notes and it's gone. Because at the end of the day, if you worry about it too much, it's going to get in the way. And you raised a great point about the idea that like with Royal Road, you can't stop. Like it's a shame, but it's also like it's a curse and a blessing that you have to remain consistent. Because you have a posting schedule that you've set for yourself. But it's one of those things where it definitely does stick with you if you find that you can't keep up with that schedule. Do you have a hard time with the schedule? How do you generally manage that?
I like writing, so I don't find it difficult to get words on like paper theoretically.
Sure.
But like I feel like I set myself on not an unrealistic posting schedule. But the way I like to write and the way my chapters work is that I personally can't write like a chapter part less than 3,000 words. And most people will recommend doing like 1,500 to 2,000 or 2,500. That's the general posting schedule. But I just can't do that. But so as opposed to people who are posting like 3 times a week where they get more exposure because they're in the updated section more often. I'm less there because I only do two chapter parts a week at like 3,000 words, sometimes 4,000 words. And reaching those word counts isn't difficult, I find, until I like don't write for a couple of days. And that's where I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm falling behind so bad. Like at one point I was like 6 chapters ahead, like 6 full chapters. So that was probably like 20,000 words. But then I got like too comfortable. and now I'm like half a chapter ahead and I'm like, no, I need to just like lock in and keep writing. But yeah, people who write far more and far often are crazy. Like some people write a ton and quick.
Oh, absolutely. Especially, within our genre, it is remarkable the amount of words that people are able to write. And I am not one of those people. Sadly, I do not have the time in the day or the the ability to sort of just push through when I'm having writer's block. But yeah, there's people out there, and obviously you talk about like Pirate Ava with the Wandering Inn. She or he, sorry, has the most with their millions of words, and their chapters that are, you talk about 4,000 word chapters, and they're out here writing 60,000 word chapters because they're ridiculous. So there's people that are just wild, and I commend them for their ability to do so, but I could not imagine being that prolific. It is remarkable.
Yeah, they're insanely like talented and like skilled as well, because it's like it's a craft to do that. Like I can't even imagine.
Oh, absolutely. Do you have other ambitions to sort of like put it in audio at sort of one point? Do you have because you're more on the manhwa side and you like visual media as well, do you sometimes envision this becoming like a manhwa itself one day, where you're like, oh, I would love to see these characters brought to life in art and stuff? Like, is that something that you hope for? And maybe not this story, but like, is that something that you like hope and have a goal for yourself for in the future?
I think it would be really cool to see it in manhwa version, but like, I struggle to like visualize things to paper, like
Sure.
as in like images. In my head it's easy as, but like putting it to paper, I'm like, no, I can't even imagine how you would depict what I'm trying to write in words right now. But it would be really cool to put it in a manhwa form. I think I did start doing like audio readings of it myself, and I'm not sure how many people are interested in hearing me speak out my own book.
That's cool.
But I've done like the first 2 chapters of my first book for it, and I need to get better audio equipment in general. But I would like to do the rest of the book for it. I just haven't had time. And that's on my goal. Maybe I would like to get a real audiobook done, like someone who like professional voice actors. But I looked at the price again. I'm like, absolutely not.
Yeah,
I can't.
It's expensive. Yeah,
it's crazy. I was staggered by the cost of it, and I'm like, as something that I really enjoy doing, I can put a little bit of money into it, but I can't put that much money into it.
Yeah. No, believe, trust me, I'm still in the red on doing it myself, and it's not fun. It's not fun.
Yeah,
but it's cool to have by all means, and like getting to work with these fantastic narrators is great. But yeah, it's definitely it's an investment. Hopefully, it's an investment. That's my goal. That it's an investment for the future. Sort of, and then last thing that I'll touch on before I finish off with a couple last things. Your cover is a little different from like other covers in the genre. You talked about meta beforehand. Where was the inspiration for like that cover, and sort of like, did you work with an artist on it? Did you do it yourself? Like, how did that sort of like come about?
I did it myself. I've done the cover for that, and also the cover for Act 2. Well, originally the cover didn't look like that. I could show you what the original cover looks like, and I was given feedback that it made my story look like a deep philosophical sort of story. And I'm like, ooh, okay, that's wrong. that's not what I'm going for. Like, it does have like the system apocalypse vibes, and also my blurb was a lot more. I would say it didn't really talk about the characters, my original blurb, and I got feedback from them that, yeah, I probably should shift it more towards where I am actually writing, which is a character-driven story. And so I was like, well, I want to put the characters on the front, but I also don't want them to be like I don't want people to have a locked image of what they are in their head, because I guess everyone has their own images. And my sister read my book, and she sent me an image once of what she thought one of the characters looked like, and I was like, that's not what I was thinking at all, but all right. live your life, So I really wanted people to kind of like put their own image on what the characters look like. And the design of it, I went through a few iterations for it, but ultimately, because the first, how early does this happen in the book? How much spoilers? The first dungeon they go into is reflected on the cover, and I want to do that for each book. Basically, the first dungeon they go to is going to be reflected on the cover.
Oh, very, very cool. So it has a theme as you sort of go through, which is very, very cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. And also shows like the blue, because it's the system blue you always see.
Yeah.
On manhwa. Yeah. That
Yeah,
was the
with the good
inspiration for
messages.
that. Yeah.
Okay, so let me do one last thing, and then we're going to get into sort of wrapping up. Okay, this last thing is sort of like a would you rather that I've done with a couple of the other authors as well. The intention here is really just to get a sense of sort of like, again, you, and then like silliness and fun and all that good stuff. So if you were to write another story, but you couldn't choose to write within like this genre, would you prefer to write a romance, or would you prefer to write like a historical fiction? Historical fiction.
Romance. I'm sorry, I can't stand historical fiction. I just can't
Oh,
stand it. Yeah. I
sure.
don't know why. I think it's like it's the idea that like history exists and like why do I need fiction about it? Like I want fantasy fiction. I don't want to read about the history. And
Sure.
it's like a very silly like perspective, but that's the way I feel whenever I read historic fiction.
Yeah. Well, so have you read some romance yourself? Have you ever, because you've written for a while, have you tried to like write some romance yourself?
So this is why I say my book's kind of like off meta. Like the core relationship in the story is like a blooming romance that is very, very slow.
Sure.
So it is part of the story, very essential part of the story. And yeah, I would like to write more romance, and obviously I've written fanfic, so
Sure.
so there's definitely an element of romance in there.
I'm telling you, there's people that want to read that as well. So like I said, talk about those a little bit more, because yeah, get those readers who want to read romance, because it does, that one does not happen as much within LitRPG. There are stories with romance, but a lot of the times either they are romance, they don't do very well, because it's not like, I would say, marketed the best, or it goes down the harem route, which is very, very popular, but like I'm guessing your story isn't a harem. So like
No. I would put a caveat that for anyone watching and like listening, it is like a slow romance.
yeah,
So I think a lot of people might not be interested in that themselves, but I do try to make it a very like realistic and personal experience. Yeah.
sure. Again, totally cool. So would you prefer to write, so again, this is similar to Manwes, would you prefer to do a isekai portal fantasy, or would you prefer to do a like VR type story?
I think the VR type of story, because I like the idea of like dual identities. I think you can do a lot with that.
Sure.
And I think you can play around with a lot of perspective for that. So that'd be more fun, I think.
Yeah, and I agree. I think a lot of people with that type of story, though it isn't as popular within RPGs nowadays, when they do it, they tend to try and focus on both the real world and like their interactions, as well as the story that's actually happening in the game and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then so you're on a huge island with Australia, but would you prefer to live on an island, or would you prefer to live in the woods?
I think an island. I prefer being able to see like the sea.
Sure.
Being able to smell seawater and like just look out and like across the horizon, and it's just a very calming experience. And I think every now and again you just need to be like covered in water. I think that's just part of life. I think our monkey brains kind of seek it. So
Sure. That's great. Well, yeah, no, that's fantastic. And then last one, would you prefer to write a war scene or a chase scene?
I tried in like strategy in writing is so fucking hard.
It is very hard.
So hard. I have like even like for like a very simple battle that I have like a whole like sketch in my notebook about like where people are moving, their abilities they have, like
Yeah.
And it's like so I could not even like fathom a war scene. I feel like a chase scene would be easier to write. So maybe a chase scene.
Yeah. Honestly, I the war scenes are hard. I was telling someone else that like after trying to write a war scene personally, I don't think I'm ever going to try and do that ever again, because while it was fun and it had some like cool aspects and I enjoyed certain things, there's just so many things happening, and it's just like you to focus on all those different things is wild. But maybe one day again, maybe I'll subject myself to that torture again in the future.
Good luck.
So,
Good luck.
yeah. just to wrap up, one last time, say who you are, talk about your book one last time, say how much it's going to be as part of the massive LitRPG sale that's happening on August 22nd to 24th, and then just, yeah, do a sort of like wrap up. Where can people find you as well, please? Thank you.
Yeah, I'm Lazarus James. I've written Dungeon Hunter. First book is Act 1, and it's available on pretty much every platform you can find. It is not on KU though, so I'm really sorry about that. I disagree with the exclusivity clause. And it will be 99 cents as part of the LitRPG sale. I think it should be the equivalent in all currencies as well. I'm hoping. I'm using Ingram Spark, so I think I've done the conversion rates right. And Dungeon Hunter is a lit RPG and slow romance, and the characters are kind of like a diverse queer cast, and it's a very character-driven story. We're sitting at about 220,000 words in Act 2 right now.
Wow.
And yeah, you can read it. If you finish the first book, you can read the second book on Royal Road. Actually, you can read the first book on Royal Road as well. I didn't take it down because it's the original manuscript. The 99 cents one is better. And yeah, you can find me on Royal Road. I am writing on Scribble Hub. I also have it on AO3. I have it on Inkit. I think I have it on one other platform, but I'm not updating it because barely anyone read it there. And yeah, I am also on TikTok, YouTube, Tumblr, if anyone uses Tumblr anymore. And I consistently talk about my book. So that's all you're going to get on those platforms if you look me up there.
From August 22nd to 24th, I'll be running a massive LitRPG sale. That sale will include at least 200 free ebooks, all within the LitRPG and progression fantasy genre. I'd like to thank everyone for checking out the site, checking out the sale, sharing it where you can, and an especially big thank you to all the authors and publishers who have given me their blessing to host this site. I really do appreciate it. Come grab some free books.